Today, this is Rinzin Dorjee as introduced by the coordinator. Uh, the topic, first of all, I would like to thank you all for coming here, showing up here. And then I also want to thank the organizer, the Tibet Museum, and under the Department of Information and International Relations who organizes this talk series. So the topic that I have chosen for today's presentation is the impact of infrastructure development, as I've given here. But then I want to be a little general about the presentations because I have newly joined the Tibet Policy Institution, and then this area of research is also very new because my PhD is not on this topic. I have submitted my thesis to University of Madras in Chennai on the Central Tibetan Administration, that is Tibetan government in exile, its policies. So I will be really general, and then my presentation will be divided into two. The first part I will highlight what is Tibet and what are the infrastructures that Chinese government has brought in Tibet, and then the latter part I will conclude with the various socio-economic and political as well as environmental impact in Tibet. So then we will have some few minutes for questions and answer sessions, or any comments also you can add. I will be welcome. So to begin with, of course, I hope many of you know about Tibet, but then those who doesn't know what is Tibet all about, because Tibet has a different in the world, and then China has, as a political reason, has also understood, or they project Tibet only as the less than the half of the Tibetan original territory, and they named it as a Tibet Autonomous Region, which was formed in 1965 after the occupation of Tibet in 1959. And they name Tibet in Chinese language during the Manchu rules in China. They literally, which means that Xizang. It's a Chinese language, Xizang, which means Western Treasure Land, because Tibet is very rich in different kind of resources. It has around 11 or 12 major rivers which feed the 1.3 billions in the riverine areas of the South and Southeast Asian countries, including the mainland China. And it has a 18 different minerals in 18 mineral difference, including gold, copper, and all this. And Tibet is also the top largest lithium producers. If you are carrying handset or mobile, you have a little Tibet in your pocket, because Chinese is the most manufacturing country in the world. And now we Tibetan, how we consider Tibet as Tibet is considered traditionally as three provinces. That is Uzang, Amdo, and Kham. Uzang is the central Tibet, and Amdo is the northeastern part of Tibet, and Kham is the southeastern part of Tibet. It's the southeastern part of Tibet. But all the Tibetans, all this area, and people living in these three provinces speaks same language and practice same culture and religions. So there is, as a researcher, I should say that historical debate about whether these Amdo and Kham territory is under Chinese control or not control. There are a lot of historical interpretations, but we Tibetan consider these three as a traditional Tibetan provinces or Tibet. But the current, as Chinese has demarcated, only Tibet autonomous as Tibet. So they have curved the other rest of the Tibetan territory as Qinghai Tibet, Gyeongsu Tibet Autonomous Region, Sichuan Tibet Autonomous Region, and Yunnan Tibet Autonomous Province, or so like that. In total, there are 4 to 5 provinces. I'll show you the map. So this is how we Tibet look as the original Tibet: Uzang, Amdo, and Kham. So other colors are Chinese demarcation of Tibet. Now, from the original Tibet, Now Chinese government has carved out only the central part, including the certain areas of the Amdo and Kham, and named it as a Tibet. So if you look into the Chinese government official document, any document or any talks that is by the Chinese government, they consider Tibet only as this part. But the rest of the Tibetan areas, Amdo and Kham, they never consider as a Tibet. So now the central Tibetan administration, as well as the Tibetan majority, what we are seeking is not independence but autonomous. So autonomous for all three traditional provinces, including the other two provinces. But Chinese government are not agreeing to the giving the unified, single unified autonomy to all three provinces. So looking at the infrastructures in Tibet, I can categorize into four. Under transportations, there are railways, airports, and roads. And under energy, mining, solar, and wind energy, and under damming, as you know, China is the most dammed country in the world, and more than half of the world dams are in China. And then, because of damming, they use either for generating hydroelectricity or for the water diversion from south to north. And then urbanization is a now rapid, massive development that is happening in Tibet. This year itself, from January to March, around 3 to 4 cities are upgraded as the urban cities in Tibet, because a large influx of the Chinese cateries and Chinese people settling in Tibetan urban areas, so they need to create the facilities to meet their settlement. So that's why many Tibetan areas are now upgraded as urban cities. So, but I will go only to 3 to 4 key infrastructures. First, we'll go to the what are the railways infrastructures in Tibet. And this is a map of primary and feature network of railway. So the Tibet never had a railway before 1959. So after Chinese occupying the Tibet, they constructed railway line from Xiling, that is I think very close to Sidon Park, which also connected to the Chinese capital city Beijing. So from Xiling it comes to Golmud, that is a Tibetan territory, and this project has been started in 2007 June, and the project has been completed 1 year ahead of the actual plan. And at the moment, 2015, and this is the Tibetan traditional capital called Lhasa. And from Lhasa, now they are for 12 5-year plan. The Chinese government is planning for a railway link up to Ningti, which is very close to the Indian state of Arunachal Pradesh. And they have already started operating train up to Shigatse. Shigatse is the second capital of Tibet. And politically, the late Panchen Rinpoche is from this monastery in this area. So strategically, political reason also, it has a lot of significance. And from Golmud, it also goes to the Xinjiang or East Turkestan. And by 2020, now Chinese government has declared that, by 2020, Chinese government has declared that or planned that the Tibetan railway will reach up to the Nepal and Bhutan. And this dam area is bordering to the Tibet and Nepal border. And the dam is, Tromo is near the Bhutan, and Ningti is very close to the Arunachal Pradesh. So if you talk about the speed or the facilities of the train, from Lhasa, the capital, to Shigatse, the second capital, the train travels at 130 kilometers per hour. If you go by highway, it takes 4 hours. Now with train, you can reach within 2.5 hours. Now if we go a little beyond the Tibetan territory, now Chinese government has also officially planned that the Tibetan territory will be extended further to the Asian countries, to the Nepal, Bhutan and India, as I told you before, and then it's also connected to the various South and Southeast Asian countries like Vietnam, Malaysia, Laos, Cambodia and Burma. And then it also from Shikadze, they also plan to the Ngari, that is the western part of Tibet, and which also they are planned to connect to the Afghanistan and then the Pakistan, where the Pakistan government has given lease for the Chinese government to access their port, water port. Now, if you come to the highways, already there are three major highways operating in Tibet. One is from the Sichuan to Tibet Autonomous Region, the green line, Xinghai, and then the brown line is from Sichuan to Tibet Autonomous Region, and then the last line is from the Yunnan to Tibet Autonomous Regions. Now, the recent news from the Chinese official media says that the Metok is very close to Tibet Indian border. It's the last village in Tibet which doesn't have a road facilities. So now they are planning to finish that road constructions. After that, Tibet will be connected from the road by 2020, I think so. And then, since you all know that since 2009, there has been more than 100 of Tibetan self-immolators, out of which many high percentage are from Tibetan monks and nuns. So the Chinese side, these Tibetan self-immolators are looked at as troublemakers. So that's why they have, by 2020, every monasteries in Tibet will be connected to at least one town in Tibet. So that is their plan. And if we talk about the airport facilities in Tibet, one of my colleague researcher in our TBI, he has found out that every Tibetan autonomous prefectures has at least one airport. But I personally have come across nearly 6 to 7 civilian airports, and out of which 5 are operational and which connects to different parts of the world. And then there are totally 21 airports, both military as well as civilians. So some airports are used both for military purpose as well as for civilian purpose. And I think most of you who are aware about environment issues in Tibet, Tibet is known as the third pole in the world after the Antarctica and the Arctic, because the Tibet has the largest reservoir of fresh water, which fits, including China, more than nearly half, you can say half the population of the world. And it has around 12 rivers, major rivers, and as I told you before, China has one of the most dammed country, and out of which so many dams are already started operating in Tibetan different rivers. And the problem also here is that China doesn't have a so-called water sharing treaty, because the river originates from Tibet. It flows to the various South and Southeast Asian countries, especially India, Burma and Laos, Cambodia and all these countries. But then now China, some mines has caused the poisoning of the water, and some it led to the death of the fishes, and it also produced different toxic gas in the environment. So there are different environment factors which has caused the destruction of the Tibetan environment through these dams and hydro projects. So now we will come to the second part, that is the impact of these infrastructure development in general. First, because we have to also see not only from Tibetan side, we have to also understand how Chinese see the Tibet development, right? So that's why the Chinese government see the development or infrastructure development in Tibet as the Western development project. Because if you see the Chinese, after opening up of 2000, after 2000, the Chinese started opening up to the rest of the world. And it has also started opening to the west. West means the western part of Tibet, which include Tibet, Inner Mongolia, East Turkestan. So now, in 2000, they started developing this area with the reason that the three main areas of China, that is central, eastern, which is the coastal part of China, and the western part. So there is a regional economically imbalance. So to balance this regional imbalance, we need to they give a reason that we need to develop this western part. And they also consider that the development is the only answer to all the problem in the Western countries. And every political or social economic reason or problem can be solved through the development. But we, from our side, Tibetan, we consider through this infrastructure development, the Chinese government tried to suppress the Tibetan political freedom through the various means. As a result, we all know that since in 1987 there was a mass peaceful riots in Tibet, during which many are imprisoned and many were killed. And since 2009, more than 100 Tibetans have self-immolated because of these reasons, political reasons. And then Emily T. she is a ethnoculture and ethnographic researcher and based in Hong Kong, and she has found out that the development in the landscape of Tibet has transformed through the territorializations. That is called, the Chinese government always want to legitimize their rule over Tibet by integrating the western part of Tibet, western part of China, including the Tibet, East Turkestan and Inner Mongolia as the mainland China. And the social impact as a result of this infrastructure development, last year, for example, 2014, there were around 15 million tourists in Tibet, and most of them from the mainland China. And Tibet is also used as the honeymoon place, or they also projected Tibet as a culture exotic place, which means there is in the paper or in the laws there are various rights or freedoms that the Chinese government say that they are giving or protected, but then in practice the Tibetan people cannot worship or practice their own religion. And as part of the Tibetan Center for Human Rights and Development Democracy, which is a Tibetan NGO, Dharamsala-based Tibetan NGO, as part of their report, the average schooling for Tibetan students is only 6 years, whereas the national average schooling year in China is 8 to 9 years. So Tibet, as far as the national, is very low. And again, according to Emily Ye, she has found out that the Tibetan has, especially in urban area, has lost their identity or culture. And after 2008, the Chinese media or state media has projected the Tibetan people as a very scary, or they will destroy shops, they will burn something. So that's why when any Chinese people who are coming to Tibet, they always look Tibetan as the very suspicious, and there's a Tibet, which means she has used the term called internal others, because you are living in your own country, but still you feel as others. You are from outside, because the people who are coming from outside. Last year, 2014, the GDP of Tibet is 12, very, very high, whereas the Chinese national average of GDP is 7.4. And Tibet has also climbed to 14% in 2007. So how come, I think you must have a question, how come Tibet has such a high GDP? Now, all the development in Tibet is all because of the central government, high investment, as well as the subsidies. One of the Chinese senior member of the Central School of Central Party School, her name is Tenvi. In her interview, she has said that out of 100 renminbi, Chinese currency, or in India, out of 100 rupees, only 7 rupees are generated within the Tibet. or mostly from the tourism. Others 97 rupees are coming directly from the central government. And most of the investments are mostly focused on the geostrategic or military reasons, like railways or airports, so that they can transport the mineral resources from Tibet to the rest of the Chinese territory. And then, because of urbanization project, many Tibetan nomads, we call it Dokpa, has been forcefully resettled in urban area, and they were forced to sell their own livestock. And then another development economics, Andrew Merton Fisher, he has found out that the economic conditions in Tibet is a very extreme dependence on the state. So he has also posed a question that if the Chinese central government stopped this central investment one day, so what would be the condition of Tibetan economy? And he has also found out that the policy of that Chinese government practice in Tibetan economy is a boomerang aid policies. Chinese government gives so much money to the Tibet, but somehow this money doesn't stay in Tibet, because most of the shops and business in Tibetan urban areas are Chinese people. And then Chinese factories, and any railway construction, airport construction or major infrastructures, all are Chinese peoples, because Tibetans are not skilled enough to recruit it. Second, for political reason. So that's why most of the money that comes from central government to Tibet goes back to China. So money doesn't stay in Tibet. As per the one Australian environmentalist, Gabriel Lafferty, he has found out that Tibet has so much of mine, but so far the Chinese government has extracted only copper and gold, because other metals are Chinese government has imported from the South African countries, because they found it that is much cheaper to extracting from the Tibet. But then most of the mining industries in Tibet are mostly known as SOEs, state-owned enterprises, because these enterprises is the mining enterprises, which is run directly by the Chinese government. But then he has also found out that the Tibetan has a genetically or environmentally or religiously, they are so resistant, and so that's why they are protesting the illegal minings or mining projects in Tibet, and without giving much importance to the arrest or the result of such kind of protests in Tibet. This is the one picture of the protests against the language discrimination in Tibet. One of the Qinghai province called Repkong language discrimination protest, which was held in 2012. And now last we have the environmental impact. So because of as I mentioned before, because of the damming, the rivers are diverted. I personally think that from my research, I think the impact of hydro project is lesser than the impact of the water diversion, because if a hydro project is operated in Tibet, at least the water flows down while generating the electricity. But in case of water diversion, the entire water volume itself is diverted from Tibetan plateau to the northern part of the China. And so it will create major disaster to the neighboring countries like India and South Asian country in future. This is the one picture of the anti-mining protests in Zaltoi County of Tibet in 2009. So in conclusion, I will conclude as the infrastructure development in Tibet are, as I mentioned before, sourced from the central government or Beijing. So every country, we welcome development or infrastructure development in Tibet, but when there is a negative motive or the political or geostrategic reason for such kind of infrastructures, so we have to protest against such kind of infrastructure development. And then whenever there is a development project, the concerned communities who has to rehabilitate it or who has to be resettled has to be discussed. But then all the major development projects in Tibet are unilaterally imposed from the central government without the consent of the local Tibetan people. And because of this infrastructure development, now only urban areas, that is 20% of the Tibetan populations, may be benefited. Or mostly those Tibetans who are working in Chinese so-called the Tibet Autonomous Region or the Tibetan Police Service or the military, but the Tibetan originally 80% are lives in village area. So they are hardly benefited from this kind of massive infrastructure development. And then the dam and hydro project, which are also operated in Tibet, but most of the electricities are used outside the Tibet. It has been exported from Tibet to the other part of the China. So with this I conclude here, and I look forward for your questions and comments. Thank you. Or if you have any other questions regarding the Tibetan exile policies or administration, because I have done my PhD thesis on that. So maybe I will try to answer some of the questions regarding Tibet.
Do you believe that it will be physically possible
Yes.
for a lot of the refugees who are living in India,
Yes.
for that matter, to ever go back to Tibet? Will that ever happen?
Yes, I think every Tibetan believes that, because we have to rely on the hope.
Okay.
But we are always, that's why the Central Tibetan Administration has been established, so much of Tibetan settlement, around 58 Tibetan settlements are set up in the different parts of India. And now less than the half of Tibetan who are outside Tibet has moved in the 30 different countries in the West. So our hope is strong, and we are doing our best. And we think, and then His Holiness has also said in many occasions that Tibet issue will be resolved during his lifetime. So we are very optimistic and positive about the future.
But this is all based on hope and optimism.
Yes.
My point is there a concrete road plan? Is there, what's being done towards that?
We are lobbying different environmentalists and then different international organizations like UN. If it is concerned to human rights, we participate in different human rights forums. And same time, now we are trying, our central government, Tibetan administration, on behalf of the 6 million Tibetan, we are trying to negotiate and dialogue with the Chinese counterpart since 1987. So far we had a 9 round of dialogue. So some process of dialogue or understanding is going on, and we are not asking for independence, which Chinese doesn't want. Yeah. So now we are looking forward with if the Chinese government give us the genuine autonomy that they have already enshrined in the Chinese constitutions or the national law of regional autonomy. It is there, but it's not implemented. So what regional autonomy that you see in the present Tibet is not genuine autonomy. Everything is under control by the Chinese Communist Party in the Beijing. So if they give this autonomy, we are ready to accept that.
Do you think that even if they give the autonomy, that they will really live by that truthfully? I mean, like in the Xinjiang region as well, it's an autonomous region, but it seems like it's really tightly controlled. It restricts so many of their freedoms as well. So I guess you have hope that they would give you that freedom even if they gave you the autonomy. But my question is, how much do you believe that they will really give you the freedom in that autonomy.
I think we are very positive about that. But regarding the Xinjiang, East Turkestan, yeah, they also have set up the same like Tibetan Autonomous Region. They have the Xinjiang Autonomous Region, and Inner Mongolia also they have set up autonomous region. But then practically there is no autonomous.
Yeah.
So, but Xinjiang, as far as my knowledge, I think the approach of their dealing with this issue is a little bit different from us. We are a little bit more of peaceful and the dialogue oriented. And then I think under our charismatic leadership, I think we are moving forward, very close to the goal. So maybe since we have been outside for 56 years, and then there are different international organizations, and there can be international mediator or what you call witness, so that these autonomous that they wanted to guarantee can be ensured or met for the Tibetan people. So I think because of China, the world itself is now moving to the economic might or the military might. So that's why the entire initiation has to come from the Chinese side. Though our method is peaceful, so the initiative has to come from the Chinese side. So everything is now in the Chinese side. So we are waiting with a positive and optimistic hope. Because I have also been to Italy, and I've seen the South Tyrol, which comes under this one, which were part of the German before. Now they have become an autonomous government, autonomous country, South Tyrol, and we are having exchange or some seminar or discussions or research with them. So we are learning how autonomous governments are run in the different parts of the country, so that we can learn from different parts of the country.
How much do you think, like the changing direction of rivers and everything, how much will that actually affect the Southeast Asia parts? Like, will it be? Has there been research on that? How extreme that would be, and how do they react on these times of the building the dams?
I'm not very sure, but then as much as I know, I think Nepal has a dominant Chinese influence, and already there is a highway connecting the Kathmandu, and now 2020 train is coming, and then Burma also has a Chinese influence, and then most of the South Asian country also has a Chinese sphere of influence, and then as you know, the Chinese in their history they have a concept called Middle Kingdom, which they think that China is a center of the world, and so to materialize that dream of Middle Kingdom, I think the Tibet is used as a geostrategic purpose to have a dominance or influence on the Asian first, and then later on the other parts of the world.
What exactly is the official announcement with regards to diversion of rivers? Because they're building a dam on the Brahmaputra river, that I know.
Yes, sir.
And the Indian government has taken it up with them, and
Yes, sir.
they've replied saying that we will keep India's interests in mind.
Yes, sir.
But if you talk about Mekong and Brahmaputra, it's affecting so many countries.
Yes, sir. I'll show you the map, the river map. Okay, so this is the river map, and as far as I know, these three rivers, which flows to the Laos and the Southeast Asian countries, Now Chinese government has started building big dams on this, and now they started project for diversion from here to the northern part of China. And I think recently one of the environmentalists, Michael Buckley, he has found that the Chinese has started building dams on this area so that this water will be diverted to this area.
How legal is that?
How
legal is that? Because countries which get the river flowing from, I mean, when 2 or 3 countries are involved,
Yes, yes.
you cannot unilaterally divert rivers.
So the problem is the Chinese government doesn't believe in the water sharing treaties. China doesn't have.
Anyone, yeah.
So practically it is, morally it is wrong, but then the no government can so far impose anything on China.
Since that will like impact big countries, do you think like the rest of the world will like have economical like try to change China's mind? Because like, do you think the world will react if it affects the other countries down southeast like really much? Or is it, do you think China just can do whatever they want with this?
It's very difficult to tell the future, no one can predict, but as far as how the past and the present, what Chinese government is doing, as we all know, the world is also moving with the economic, market economy or the consumerism. So China is one of the most manufacturing, storehouse of the world. So because of these import dependent with the Chinese government, many countries has forsaking their political reason. But then China also is now in a very fragile insight politically, because no country has ever spent higher their internal budget than the defense budget. The Chinese government is spending more on internal budget than the external defense budget, which means the internally is very fragile. Many research scholars has predicted the Chinese political system will collapse or crack down, but then so far it has not happened. But then the future will tell what will happen.
We will stop here because of time constraint. So I would like to thank Mr. Rinzin Dorjee. As a token of appreciation, we would like to hand him a Tibetan scarf. Actually, we have you can visit our tibetanmuseum.org website, as we usually upload our talk series in YouTube, and you can watch it even if you can't just physically present over here. You can watch it in our YouTube. You can visit our website. So further more information you can visit also in tibet.net. It's a Central Tibetan Administrative website. And after this we have here a little refreshment over there. You can join there. Thank you.